Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rad Life. Today, I have a special guest, Mr. Richard Ward, who is a friend. And it's been interesting the last few months. If you're like me, we've had a lot of chance probably to do a little bit of internal review, take personal audit, if you will, and wonder. Um, Now that we have some time to slow down enough, because usually if you're like me, a lot of people are just on the go. You're just constantly on the go, and you don't really have time to really evaluate, step back, have some quiet space between the noise, between the activities, between the things that are, demands on our time, errands, responsibilities. And we've been offered an opportunity to do that. And one of the things that constantly comes up is this all that there is this satisfying enough for me? Do I need to have a little bit more purpose? And in some cases, it's um, very like it's a question that you're not asking esoterically. It's actually a very fundamental question right now, because you may be looking at a need to change career path. You may be looking at the fact that your business that you have been operating for the last 10 years or so, you can't operate right now because it's shut down, or you just simply cannot afford to do it anymore at 50% capacity. If you're a restaurant, for example, there's some realities that you're dealing with right now that may be having you reevaluate the values in your life, what your life composition should be like, and really the level of fulfillment and satisfaction. So with that being said, I would like to bring on from our famous green room, Mr. Richard Ward, to join me in this conversation. Richard, are you there?
I think I'm here, Rad.
There he is. Sharp as ever, my friend. You look very sharp sitting there.
Well, that's good because pretty much got dressed this morning, remembered that I forgot how to tie a tie, so glad that worked out.
You know what? I had kind of a similar experience this morning. I'm like putting on actually a sport coat on a Friday, and I'm thinking, this is kind of strange. And then I actually said, it's actually kind of fun. I'm actually getting dressed up on a Friday. The only thing
Hey, what's
missing
wrong
is,
with that picture, huh?
well, the only thing missing is like either a martini glass in my hand or something. But the afternoon is still young, so I will find purpose
You're
somewhere.
all ready for it. You're
I'm all
set.
ready for it. I'm all dressed for the part.
Yeah.
So I was saying before I brought you on, Richard, that a lot of people right now. I mean, this is something that probably goes on all the time, but especially right now with this period of COVID, and there's been probably a lot of people finding themselves in a situation where they're reevaluating. They're talking about within whether within their family dynamics or on their own, whether it's driven by an opportunity, like you're at a certain point in your career path or age or whatever, where you're reevaluating what your life composition should be, what things are satisfactory to you, or it could be very much more drastic, and it could be that the career path that you've been on for the last 10 years that you woke up every morning and just did is no longer an option. Your business that you have basically been operating the last 5 months, you held on for a couple of months, and now you're really going to have to reinvent, because you got to pivot, you got to reinvent. It's not working anymore. You don't know how you're going to be able to sustain yourself. So different dynamics going on, but I think the underlying issue is this, is this all there is? Is this satisfying enough? And so I couldn't think of a better person to have this conversation with today. So
Well, thanks for that vote of confidence. I appreciate that.
absolutely, absolutely. And if you wouldn't mind, just take a minute and give people a little bit of background about yourself. And then I do want to just jump into that, because I think it's a very timely conversation.
Right. So as you know, I'm a certified financial planner, and I've been working in this field for well over 3 decades. And I realized a few years back that when you help people, to create enough financial security that they don't have to work anymore, oftentimes they don't work anymore and they give up any kind of sense of purpose and so forth in their life. It really isn't something that is a pretty picture when people don't have a reason to get up in the morning, and
Right.
they kind of just go through life kind of subsisting. And without that, I think people oftentimes become bored and disconnected, and some negative things come out of that. So it's not a real pretty picture. I found that out, realized that, as I get into that point in life, that I needed to figure out what I wanted to do and how that was going to work. And I really had to search for how I wanted to help people going forward. And
Mm-hmm.
I, had been a community leader for, a lot of years. I'd been a volunteer. I'd been able to see how great it is when you're helping other people learn and grow and thrive. And so I took that experience along with hearing from some very successful business people that had done this in the past and gotten to a point where they too were asking, is this all there is, in life? And is there not more for me? And they went on a journey of discovery, found some really terrific ways to use their skills and experiences and resources to really make an impact in their community and sometimes around the world. And as I heard them talk about the adventure they'd gone on and the impact that had not only on the people they were helping, but also on their own family members, I thought it was one of the coolest things I had ever heard, and knew that that was really kind of the direction. That was really the calling, was to help other people discover this opportunity to really turn their success into much more significance in life, to do something that was more rewarding and fulfilling. And so I kind of just moved my practice, my business, and mission really around that to help introduce people to this, make them understand that going on and developing a renewed sense of purpose in their life was really important, and that could provide the rewards that they would look for and count on to continue to get up each morning excited about the challenges ahead for the rest of their life.
Let me share a personal reference, Richard. You and I haven't talked about this, but I think my mother passed away in May, and my dad is 84, and he has it's not far gone, but he has the beginnings of dementia. And gentleman was my father was a supervision engineer, a civil engineer, who then went into supervision, and it was large, concrete and steel buildings, and the man never wanted to be in an office, so he always ran multiple projects out of a job site. I fondly refer to my childhood as playing in the sandbox of job sites with real Tonka toys, right? But
pretty good childhood.
Yeah, and it's ironic that I basically ended up being on job sites in the form of interior design later in life, but it's full circle. The thing about my father, and it's almost stereotypical to say engineers and social skills and all that stuff, but my father came to the United States later in life, just about as he was about to retire. And he literally retired to building his own home for my mom and him. And after that, you got the grandkids, and that gave purpose. But my father didn't really take the time, and I don't know that he had the ability or the skill set or the direction or wherewithal to how to go about, even especially later in life, to make that shift from that work to retirement to successful to purpose, which is what you and I were talking about. And so currently, he is in that fog that you were referring to, and it's sad. It's sad to see a person who was so engaged and it has literally emotional, psychological, physical effects when you basically find yourself in that situation. So, at times we make it sound like it's a luxury, but in fact, I believe it's a real healthy necessity for people to embrace this and have a solution or some game plan in mind. So, your nonprofit that you set up, with success. Let me put this thing up here. Success with Purpose. I think. And I joked with you a little bit before we started the show. It's like, I've been told for the last 20 years of my life, you must find your purpose. You must find your purpose. And then everybody just says, okay, good luck with that. And I'm moving on now. You go do that. So you, my friend, actually go a little deeper when you're working with people. So let's talk a little bit about your nonprofit and the Success with Purpose idea.
Well, thanks. First of all, let me not take too much credit. Success with Purpose is just a brand or just a name. It's not quite a nonprofit, although that's nice of you to phrase it that way.
Well, it says .org behind it, so I went with that. So
yeah, no, and there are a number of nonprofits you could find there, of course.
Yeah.
But you're so right about the purpose thing and the problem with people getting to that point in life, and I think in America, I don't know about other places in the world so much, Raad, but here, we really promoted this image that we are going to get to this point in life where you get to finally retire and you get to take it easy, give up all the hard work, and now it's time to enjoy yourself, relax. And
Right.
believe you me, those are good things. There's nothing wrong with relaxation and enjoying yourself and taking a cruise and doing the other things that you have put off and that kind of stuff, playing with grandkids and taking care of them and so forth.
But you can only play so much golf, Richard.
That's
Right?
that's a
Yeah.
great point. You can only play so much golf, and so much of this stuff. And the point is that a 65-year-old who's got a good 20, 25 years in front of him, typically speaking nowadays.
Right. Easy.
This was not true 50, 60, 80 years ago, but it is now.
Right.
And that's a long time to fill up with golf and cruises. I mean, it just doesn't fit for that. And what's more, human beings really do have this desire to be contributive, to do something that has an impact on others. And
Right.
we do it through our work for so many years if we've done the right thing and we're in the right business and so forth. And we usually feel good about that. And when we give it up, what replaces that? What is the purpose anymore? Why do you get up in the morning? You can just ask yourself that question. What is it that you want to do? And people should recognize the importance of that. And if they want to continue on the upward trajectory, as I've said many, many a time, deciding what you want to do next in life is really the key to growing up instead of just growing old.
Right.
And, you really need to determine that and have something that's important to you, something you value, something that's you care about, so that you can feel good about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
You throw out a lot of words in there that are actually very, very, no, that are critical, right. that are, no, it's perfect. But I want to just stop because again, this is such an important topic, I think, that sometimes is, oh yeah, it's a nice conversation, but it actually is very, very, you could almost say it's critical, I think, because, and it's ironic that we spend so much time, for example, going back to your field of profession, there's so much time and care taken in like planning, okay, financially, planning for kids in college, planning for all this stuff. It's not like we have a lack of planning, but it seems like when it comes to this thing, and maybe it is this existing programming of, that you just put your head down and you hunker down and you put in about, 40 years, 50 years of work. And then after that, you basically get to stick your feet in the sand, have a Mai Tai in your hand, and basically, there are no more worries in the world, right? That may have been the case when we were also very physical in terms of our professions, where there was an actual physical need for you to basically rest your body. And to your point, if you lasted, 10 years after that, you had a long life. Now, the traditional retirement of 65 or 67, whatever it is today, you still got almost like another career in you. And not only do you have another career in you, but you have a career in you now armed with the tools and the skills and the seasoning that you have gained in 40 years of being out there in the trenches. So that maybe 20 years or 25 years that you have left could actually be even more rewarding than the 40 that you just spent. But you've got to kind of plan for it. And what value, you use the word value, right? I used the word, satisfaction or fulfillment before I got you on. How do you evaluate those? And those two things are similar terminologies. I think are probably as unique as the individual trying to do that thinking, right? I mean, it's not the same. There's no one size fits all for people on this.
It's so true. And you described that just so perfectly, Raad. I mean, this is the reality that we face these days. We have this long time. We have enough time for a second career. Some people call it an encore
career, yeah.
But it is there. We have a world of experience and knowledge by that point in life. It certainly is usable. There are lots of places that you can contribute it, and there are places and people that want the benefit of that knowledge and information. So it's not like it's useless. It's not like it's out of sync and out of touch and that kind of thing. So there's lots of opportunity if we as individuals will recognize that doing something and contributing in some way is going to be important for us. That's how we'll find that fulfillment. That's how we'll find those rewards and be able to continue to grow and continue the upward path. I, again, discovered this years ago when I was kind of going through my transition about this. and reading a book called Finishing Well, and it was all about the stories of very successful people who were now in their 70s and 80s and so forth. And it was all about what are you doing and how are you, finishing life well. And their belief is if you do it, if you find the right area where you can contribute, something you feel strongly about, you can continue on that upward path right till the day you leave the world. And I thought that's probably a pretty good way to do it, because I don't think most of us really look forward to becoming that old kind of useless and maybe a little decrepit type of individual that can barely get around, barely do anything, and essentially, for lack of a better phrase, kind of waiting around to die. It just doesn't seem to me a very appealing way to finish your life.
Well, and yet, it's funny. If I may just digress for a minute, it is funny that that is still somewhat societally how we deal with our elderly, like that's to sort of put them away, out of sight, out of mind, in a waiting space kind of thing. And don't get me started down that path. I have very strong feelings about that. Right?
No, I can fully appreciate that. Yeah. But I'll say, I don't mean to disparage people in the financial industry either, but I think this has been one of the issues is they've kind of been bought into this, this model, this, golden years approach. I'm sure you've seen it. What we want people to do is get to be 65, have enough money, and then they can run on the beach every day for the rest of their lives, right? Like that's going to provide the fulfillment. I mean, it's great. We all want to do that once in a while.
Right.
But are you going to do that really every day?
Well, we look, we're a large country. I mean, I'm just going to get economical here for a minute, but we're a large country. We have a lot of people. We have this need to systemize things and sort of compartmentalize things so that it's a one size fits all approach, because we're just dealing with a lot of numbers, right? I mean, I can appreciate that. That's how you basically build your marketing. That's how you basically do your targeting, your what's your profile if your ideal client kind of thing. All of this language has been ingrained into society for such a long time that this sort of individualized approach. And when we use the terminology, by the way, custom tailored all the time, we use the one-on-one terminology all the time, but we still fall into this thing where even the one-on-one has sort of like a playbook. It applies in most 9 out of 10 cases, right? It's kind of ironic. But the thing about this fulfillment beyond a certain point, beyond where you put in all the hard work and then you cash out, where you got a balloon payment, or you've got a life insurance policy that comes to maturity, or even let's step away from the financial industry for a minute, go to the real estate industry, where at a certain point you're supposed to scale down, move to a smaller thing. And I've seen this completely upended on its head, like where you got people that I've got another 15, 20 years in me. I live in a home that I'm bought and paid for. It's in an environment that I'm familiar with. It makes no sense to me why you would, in your later years, when you need to be surrounded by familiarity, that you're being told by the real estate industry you should go scale down and move somewhere else. So I'm not picking on anybody, but it's just this mindset change that we need to basically adapt, maybe, is in our best interest, I think, if we embrace it.
Yeah, I would certainly hope so. And what I've tried to do, Red, is I've tried to look at this retirement time frame as not a finish line, but a new beginning line. It's another time to start over and do something worthwhile. And for me, it makes my work that much more interesting and enjoyable.
I would think probably
come up with something new for the future. Something that they really want to get excited about and get engaged with, and then they say, sure, now can you help me with that?
Right.
I mean, I really want to do that. So that becomes a lot more rewarding than just we got to have enough money so that you can pay your bills and get out of go do it.
I would think it also builds a lot of like a different layer of trust and depth of relationship with your clients. I mean, it's not just a hello, thank you, sit down, here it is. You're getting a little bit more into what you're challenging them to maybe assume that they can have more fulfillment, that more satisfaction in their lives, and that this is maybe the roadmap that we craft together. Basically, we draw up a map for you together. I think it's rewarding to them and to you, because you're still going in, you're clocking in the time. You could be doing it just rote almost, or you could do it on a different level of interaction, which is what you're talking about. Now, at the very beginning, I said, a lot of people basically tell me, you need to find your purpose. And then they say, good luck. right? So I want to get a little bit into this because, you know, how do you, if somebody comes to you, right? What is some of the stuff that triggers you to say, you know what, this is a candidate for this conversation? And then how do you basically guide them?
Well, that's a really great question. You know, first, I think half the battle, probably more than half the battle, is this idea of recognizing that they're going to need something for the years ahead. So if they tell me, you know, I'm selling my business, or I'm leaving the company after all these years and it's coming up next September, and I can tell you how great it's going to be that last day and so on and so forth, and I go, congratulations, that's wonderful, you accomplished all that. So what's next? What are you going to do now?
Yeah.
You know, they'll tell me, you know, I'm going to take a vacation and we're going to go see the grandkids and all that.
I remodel the kitchen. I'm gonna turn that. Yeah.
I say, great, you should do that. You know, those are all good things. So that'll take 6, 9 months, whatever. And when you get done with that, then what's next?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I hadn't really thought about that. And I'll say, well, yeah, I think you should, because we need this purpose in our life. But to get to your point, and there are 1,000,001 answers to this.
Sure.
Obviously, so there's no one route. But for me, it comes from refocusing our efforts on helping other people.
Okay.
You know, we spend most of our working lives, at least, really focused on securing our own place in the world, taking care of our families, all those kind of things that are important.
Yeah.
But they're really kind of self-focused, if you will. And my point is, if you get to this point in life, hopefully most of those things are largely done. And now you have the opportunity to shift your focus from your own needs to really helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can look out there and at the world and find an avenue to do that, and when I do it, I'm thinking about the nonprofit world. I'm thinking about the organizations that are serving human needs in one way or another, or
Mm-hmm.
other kind of needs for that matter, and really helping people say and look at the question of, what do you care about? You know, what's important to you? What issues matter to you? What problems do you find really important? Does something touch your family in some way that you really care about, a disease, right, or, you know, whatever it might be? And, you know, let's focus on those kind of things, because for whatever reason, and they're different than mine or different than yours, but for whatever reason, you're going to find something that really matters to you. And that is generally a cause, you know, and if we can identify a cause, then we kind of have the germination of that purpose, you know, what it is about that. So I want to have an impact to make sure that kids everywhere get the best opportunity to get into college, you know, and that kind of thing. And it becomes that new purpose for them. And then, well, how can you have an impact on that? What is it you can do? What is it you have to offer? Is it your money? Maybe some people have a fair amount of money and they want to finance scholarships, for example, so they can do that. Others may not, but they have expertise. You know, well, I was a teacher, I was a mentor, I was a coach, I was whatever, and I want to be able to use those skills to be able to help kids learn and get ahead, or whatever it happens to be. And it could be that you're a business guy or whatever, and you didn't do any of those things, but you say, you know what, I know how to balance books, I know how to take care of an organization, maybe I can go into the leadership and help them, a nonprofit cause or organization, really run effectively and be able to do the things that it needs to do. So I have a place where I can play a role. You know, we can figure out that cause and what it is that you have to offer, what kind of role is the right place for you to fit. You know, we generally have a good start at where and how we're going to find that opportunity to serve.
Let me just interrupt you for a minute, okay? Because, okay, so at that moment in time, when you've had that in conversation, or you have planted that, you started that rumination, right? How many people in your experience actually are able to answer that question right away? Or is it something that they need to step away and actually have some time, give themselves the time to actually maybe formulate that answer?
Yeah, it generally does take some time. Very few people have thought this through, believe it or not, and say, I know exactly what I care about and what I want to have an impact on.
Right.
Yeah, if they had, they probably are doing it, you know. So usually they go, I don't know, you know, when I ask them that question. So we are going to have to work on it. It's usually going to take some time to really figure those things out. I give them homework and I say, you know, go answer these questions and
right,
tell me what's important to you, what matters to you, that kind of thing. And oftentimes they'll do that, but we still are going to have to massage it. We're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to really work on it until we figure out what it is that they care about. So
Well,
yeah,
it's like
it
it's
comes to you instantly.
yeah, no, well, and it's like everything else. It's like I think the more you do that, the more refined you get into that purpose. Like, and the reason why I asked that question is because it really isn't. I mean, we're talking about this in relevance to reimagining retirement. We're talking about this, but sort of like a later thing in life that you encounter and you deal with. But it really is something that isn't age specific. I mean, I remember going to the business school, and when I first came out, you know, it was what, like 85, 80, no, 87 probably. You know, you had songs like, you know, 50,000 a year buys you a lot of beer, and, you know, the future's so bright, I got to wear shades, and, you know, all that stuff was going on. And so it was very common for people coming out of an MBA or a business school to end up in that sector, whether it was, you know, the large consultancy firms or the accounting firms or what have you. And I noticed an interesting thing happen a few years later, Richard, because a bunch of them also, well, at least my friends, very few of them were like married at the time. So maybe they got married. So that was the next, you know, kind of like milestone thing to do thing on the list kind of thing. Some of them then basically went and had children, started to have kids. But somewhere around 5 to 7 years after that, I noticed that even in their career choice, they started shifting from pure profit industry, you know, manufacturing, to where they start working at things like maybe the automobile club in an executive position, or they started doing things like, you know, Meals on Wheels on the side, or being on board with certain things. So it was interesting that that sort of internal need for more satisfaction, more fulfillment was starting to you know, permeate through their lives. Whether it's, you know, kids and being involved at the school, becoming, you know, part of the PTA or what have you. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it really is something that is rewarding at any age. And
Absolutely right.
right.
No, and that's why it's a little rare when I find a 65-year-old who's not had any exposure, you know, hasn't done a thing, you know, to
Right.
give back, help anybody else. It's not an entirely new concept. But you're right, it is rewarding. My career started in my 30s, you know, when I was volunteering, and you know, found lots of reasons for that. You know, it's helpful for business networking, of course, but, you know, there were causes and things that we cared about, and you get involved and you find out how great it is. And to this day, Rad, I love the opportunity to go out and see a program and see what was going on and who they're having an impact on, and seeing the people and how grateful they are and so forth for the help they're getting, because it just touches you in a way that, you know, you wouldn't expect. And there's a lot of people just have not experienced that yet, but it has that impact, and you go, wow, this is so great. This is why I do this. This is, you know, a reminder, and we all need that. I need that, you know, that we need this reminder. This is why I'm doing this. And I, you know, want to do it some more. You know, I think it's a really good thing. But,
you know, I used to joke, Richard. I used to tell people the most selfish thing you could do for yourself is basically give to others, because it satisfies your part of your soul in a way that unless you do it, you don't really know that it's even missing. And, you know, whether it's volunteering or whatever. I mean, I'm just looking at you while you're speaking, and anybody who's watching this can tell immediately you light up when you're talking about this, because that's that fulfillment coming through on your face.
yeah, I totally believe it. You know, I've seen this happen over and over and over again. I've experienced it many times, and it's funny. I know people that tell me, you know, they got this friend that's retiring or whatever, but he just won't get involved. He won't give a dime away. He won't do a thing. And you know, I would say, at what I've heard from others in the field, he just hasn't had the opportunity yet to experience this, because if he does, you know, they'll have a change of heart. All except the most cold-hearted, you know, people in the whole world. You know, but I don't think there's very many of those. I do
Not
believe
really.
that this desire to be helpful to other people. And you think about it when you walk down the street, you know, and you see somebody struggling or whatever it happens to be, you know, you want to help them, you know, get across the street, whatever it is, you know. It's this nature that we have as human beings, I think, to help others. Most of us do.
Yeah.
And so it's a real natural thing within most of us, and therefore most people get involved at some point. You said the PTA, that's a natural thing. You know, it's, as your life unfolds, you find these opportunities to do these kind of things. And others who are a little more ambitious may say, you know, serving on a board would be really good for my career right now.
Right.
Yeah, probably would. And if you go into that arrangement thinking and advertising that, boy, you can help my career, you're probably not going to be real welcomed there. But if you go in and say, helping kids in this environment is really important to me. I really think it's great. I want to help out however I can. And if my leadership is needed, terrific. I can do that. And if you take that approach, you usually are welcomed and you find those opportunities. And guess what? Yeah, down the road a little bit, you will find out it's been good for your career. But if you go in with the right intentions, it works out really well.
I think, and there's certain terms that also apply in this, like servant's heart applies in this in my mind. Giving basically without, expectations of reward, if you will. Although, like I said, one of the most rewarding things in an untangible way that you could ever do for yourself is volunteering in whatever capacity, small or large, by the way. And so it's interesting because I want to kind of just, I'm thinking while we're talking that it's even more critically important to take the time to do this sometimes when there is a crisis going on, when there is additional stress in your life, when it is, it almost sounds like a little cliche, go do something outside of get out of your own head kind of thing, right? But right now with what's going on, I think it's probably healing advice to tell somebody, look, you might want to just like maybe, I know you can't go out of the house to do something perhaps, although there are still people that are delivering Meals on Wheels. They're just doing it with social distancing, right? There will always be a way to give of yourself if you choose to, even in dire situations, right? And I think right now it's probably like when somebody sees somebody doing that, I think there's even a heightened value, to be honest.
Well, let's start with the fact that we know when we go through tough times that there are greater needs than ever. I think we all are aware of the people having trouble getting enough to eat and food and the food banks and what they're struggling with. And so
right now, right here, right today. There are families that are, we're getting all wrapped up in some of this minutia and conversation and noise going on from a political side, but there are people that are literally struggling with whether they're going to have food enough in their home, whether they're going to be able to even pay their rent.
That's right. And so the needs grow during these critical times. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that if you're able to give or contribute in any way, you're going to have an even greater impact because the need is so much better.
Would you say, Richard, that if anybody is having a hard time figuring out where to give and how to give, they can contact either you and me, and we'll probably give them a list of 10 things?
I'm sure we can get them started looking at the right places. Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate people who inquire and want that help. That's my whole point in life. My mission is to get more people at the table, get them to do this type of thing. I think it's absolutely critical, especially the successful ones that I tend to work with on a day in, day out basis. There's any number of them can be doing more of this, but we all can. As I've said over and over again, you don't have to be really wealthy.
Right.
You don't have to be a CEO or something like that. We all have something to offer.
Right.
We can contribute. So, I think that's really important that everybody has the opportunity to do this and can do this in confined places. And yes, if you're kind of confined at home and struggling with what's important to you in your life at this point, finding an avenue where you can really make a difference in somebody's life is going to generate those rewards that are going to be life lasting and really important. And will probably pull you in a much bigger way for the future. And that's a good thing. So, don't fear that. You won't do anything you don't want to do, but I can tell you stories of people that have had these experiences and continue to do this kind of thing over time. And they say that people always thank them and, show them all this gratitude about it. And they turn around and say, no, thank you, because you've given me something that I could never get anyplace else. And it's just been so great.
Well, you, my friend, you opened the door. So share a couple of stories.
Well, I have a client that loves for me to share his story. And in fact, he's been really good at coming out and helping me talk about this time to time. His name is Matt. He was in the dental supply industry for most of his career, the manufacturing part of that. Ran a division in Europe, in fact, for a while. And his company merged with another company a few years back. And as oftentimes goes with these type of situations, they consolidate. He found himself the short man out, didn't have a job. So he took his severance and left, had like a year on his hands. And he really didn't know what to do with himself. And he was really unhappy with this. He was probably in his late 40s, I guess, at that time. And so he started looking around, and it was about the time of the Haitian earthquake. You may remember the earthquake that hit Haiti. And so he wanted to help a little bit. He made a donation to an organization, and they invited him to come down there and see what was going on for themselves. And so he took the trip down there. He went a tour. He went through, and they showed him what was a dental clinic. And the clinic was a guy with a pair of pliers pulling teeth out of a line of people. You know, it was awful, you know, and he said, you know, I think I can help with this. And he came home, he started getting on the phone with his contacts and suppliers, got the donations, and he went back and he built a state-of-the-art dental clinic in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And they serve over 8,000 people a year with state-of-the-art dental treatment now. And he's gone back year after year to go oversee what they're doing there. And he just has found that to be so rewarding. More recently, though, you know, he came back, went to work. Obviously, couldn't do that forever. So he got back into the business world, ran a company for a few years, went off to a startup. This year, he let me know earlier in the year that he thought the startup wasn't going to make it. He was going to be out of a job and so forth. And so we got together and talked a little bit about that and what kind of impact that had on him and what he was going to do with his family. But once we kind of discovered that he was going to be okay financially, you know, he could do what he wanted. Next thing I know, he took off. I couldn't get a hold of him for a while. And I found out that he'd gone to New York with the same relief organization that's headed up by Sean Penn, the actor. But he went there to organize the COVID testing going on in New York City. Spent 6 weeks there doing that. His wife joined him and did it. And they came back, and he just was so excited about the impact they were having there in New York City. And he's looking forward to getting out and doing the next project with them. And he's going to probably do this kind of thing for the rest of his life. He just said, I'm done with the corporate world. I really love being able to use my skills to be able to help people like that. So I think it's a great story of somebody that really has found these rewards and wants to do it as much as possible.
Well, you know, stories like that, Richard, and you know, this is total tongue in cheek, obviously, but stories like that should come with a warning. It should come with a warning, because what that warning should say is, careful, this kind of behavior may prove to be addictive, right? Because it really is. I mean, you know, you start developing that muscle, it fulfills you. I mean, obviously you have real world obligations, you know, in this particular case, your friend Matt is basically, you know, the financial burden and worry and woes basically has been set aside. And again, that itself is not necessarily any set number, by the way. Like it could be X for one person, it could be 10 times X for the other person. So again, you know, to your point, it's not all about money. It's about what is your level of satisfaction, what is your level of fulfillment. And that is an absolutely individual answer and question and answer. I don't know that I could answer it for anybody else. And I think it changes over time. But it really should come with that warning, because behavior of that nature tends to be very rewarding in a way that really touches us as human beings. And you always want to do more or find other ways to do it. So I'm going to turn that little bit, that focus, that microscope a little bit more on you here. What are some of the things that you that just resonate with you personally? Like, what are some of the things that really draw you?
Are you talking about causes?
Causes or things, and there's probably some that has been consistent throughout your involvement in that kind of stuff. But maybe some things that you're excited about or that intrigue you and you want to get engaged in.
Well, it's been an evolution, if you don't mind me.
I don't mind at all.
Tell you the story, you know. I started early on, I said back in my 30s, you know, volunteering in it. And it was then that I really thought, you know, my education had given me a lot of opportunity. I thought it was important that other kids had that kind of opportunity as well. So I got involved with my alma mater, UCLA, raising money for scholarships for students, because I thought bright students should have the opportunity to go to school, get a good start. And I did that with them for a number of years, and was very rewarded, not only doing that, but helping in the leadership of the organization.
It would explain the colors on your logo, by the way.
Yeah, you can probably tell a little bit. It does tend to come out time to time. Been a proud Bruin for, you know, a long time. Let's see. So, you know, you do that for a few years. When our Performing Arts Center opened up in the mid-'80s, my wife and I at the time got involved there. We were invited to meet a group of people, and we thought it was kind of neat that there was a successful business person's group of young executives that were being involved with that and helping to raise money. And it was kind of a neat place to socialize and learn about the performing arts and help take that to others. And, and there you not only get to do that, but you get to expose the arts to kids,
Sure.
So that was a big part of what they were doing. And when you see a 7-year-old light up from seeing their first opera or their ballet or whatever it happens to be, it's just terrific that you enlighten a new crop of youngsters to something new that they hadn't experienced before. So, that was rewarding for a number of years. I have a disabled daughter. That wasn't really the reason, but it did relate relative to my going over to Goodwill Industries a few years later and saying I want to get involved here to a degree. She was already being involved with a job training program that they provide and so forth. And I helped to bring people and volunteers and leaders to the table to work there. And, and you go to the day when they give out the paychecks to the disabled adults who are, getting that first one from their job training, and you see the big smile on their face, the sense of pride they have because they got to get a paycheck. It wasn't really big, but they didn't care. That's really rewarding to be able to see that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, I sit on the board for Project Independence.
Oh, great!
And so I was asked, and I felt very privileged to have been asked to join the board about almost 2 years ago now. And yeah, there is something very special about when you see somebody actually appreciate not only having the job, but to be recognized, whether it's through a paycheck or by their peers. And that sort of normalization, not that the word really applies to in any way, shape, or form, but normal living for people, whether they're the independent living, being able to feel of purpose and use. Because even everybody, like to your point, everybody has that like DNA programming in them that they need to have a sense of purpose.
Right, and yeah, everybody at all levels, doesn't matter what your background, what your intellect
abilities or challenges. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, those kind of great things. And for me, what I also was doing at that time is I was asked to get involved with the organizations, to get involved with the leadership, to get involved with the organization and to help guide them and help them grow. And so I was learning, a lot of management skills, a lot of leadership skills relative to nonprofit organizations,
right.
Which I always think is kind of fun and useful because I always say, whenever you're leading a volunteer project, you're herding cats, so it's kind of a fun challenge. But I don't.
You're usually doing that on boards as well, Richard.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm getting at. I don't have a lot of other management responsibilities in my profession. I work alone pretty much, so I don't really get into that. But this gives me an opportunity to be involved in that area. And so as the last 10 years have evolved for me, it's been more along that lines of how I can use those skills that I've developed over the years in leadership to be able to organize and lead boards and to be able to do that end of it and help out a little bit more. And so that's evolved over the last few years. I have been in where you and I met, Center Club, involved with the board there for many years, and now I'm the chairman of the board there, and I get to lead that group and try to have an impact on the club. That's kind of fun. I got involved with an organization that's really all about volunteers and helping nonprofits called 10C. It's a large nonprofit organization.
Yeah, great organization.
And I was asked to help organize a group to get people with skills into the community to help different nonprofit organizations and lead their effort of really having an impact on growing that type of a program. So for the last few years, I've been helping to organize and coordinate that volunteer leadership effort to be able to provide that guidance for the organization. I serve on the board there now, but it's terrific to be able to guide, that process through and see the impact that it's having on the nonprofit organizations. And there's a couple other places.
Well, and they touch a lot of people. I mean, they've always been. I think the 10C is a rebranding name, right? It was something else before.
It's called the Volunteer Center for
That's what it was.
40 years. Before it became 10C a number of years ago. That's right. But it's roots are in volunteerism.
Yeah, they touch a lot of people. I mean, I remember doing a grant class there, grant writing class there when I was at the Rebuilding Together Orange County chapter. That was in Santa Ana. I mean, yeah, I've had the bug of volunteering and being on boards. I think I was on the historical study board in San Clemente for about 15 years until I basically started
Oh, really? Great.
feeling about as old as some of the archives and old materials that we had. But and you know, it's I think this is another thing, just because I don't usually get a chance to share this, but I think it's being part of organizations like that, being part of efforts like that. Part of that also comes with the knowledge of when to step out of the way and let a new line of people also have a chance to participate. And I think that is also, like, I don't know if you agree with me, that's part of a personal growth when you're involved in stuff like that, because it's time for you to maybe move on to something else, but then you see somebody else that could maybe bring some value, and it's like,
that's really true. And, you know, we say in volunteer organizations, you're not successful in your job until you have found and trained your replacement, you know. So you really do need to do that. And it really is an important thought, because you can have a great organization that runs really well and the people are really involved, and they get tired, move on, whatever, at some point, and the organization stops because there aren't that new blood, you know, helping out. So it's really important. But I did want to add that with 10C, it gets back to my personal mission. You know, for me, as I said earlier, this really, that work I try to do is all about getting more people involved, showing them that there are opportunities and places for them to help other people in one way or another. And I couldn't find a better resource, a better tool to leverage my work than 10C, because I figured, you know, they are the ones that are going to bring the nonprofits and the volunteers together and help them do that. So I wanted to be involved, and I kind of stalked them, I think, for a while to be able to do this kind of volunteer engagement and to help them get more of these people involved. And, you know, I wanted to be able to tell my clients and friends and others, you know, look, you're ready to do this. Here's the resource. Here's how you get out there and do it. And, you know, so it's really important to be able to deliver that. But that leverages my time and efforts, and that's really rewarding. And I got to say, you know, it's an evolutionary process too, Raad, that I've come to now, whereas I can, and I try to tell this to people that are at this point in their careers or life, is that you don't have to leave the business world. You can continue to do what you're doing. And a lot of us want to do that, but you can shift the direction of the boat a little bit here, and you can say, I want to have an impact on something that I care about. And you can do that through your business oftentimes, as I have. And now I get to give a lot of my time to organizations and to find these resources and connect the right people to them, and, you know, introduce, as I did this morning, 2 really good business people to 10C to help them find some placement into the nonprofit space. I mean, that's really rewarding when you have that kind of opportunity to have impact on things you care about. And I do. And so, you know, it's not work anymore. It's getting up doing what I want to do. And it's a great kind of second half or encore career for me, is the way I think about it.
Well, I think the satisfaction, again, that comes out of connecting people, leaving things, you know, there was, when I first started doing the show almost on a daily basis at the beginning of COVID, because we were doing it almost about once a week, right? And I came across something on Instagram that it really kind of hit me. You know, it's very common to hear somebody say, I want to leave it better than I found it. That's a very honorable pursuit, but the terminology tends to be, I want to leave it better than I found it. Well, and I don't know if I shared this with you before, you know, but here it goes. I came across this account or this profile on Instagram, and it was about this young gentleman who was an actor who lived in an apartment complex in Hollywood or something. And there was an older lady that lived in the same apartment complex on the same floor with him. It was probably, I don't know, probably close to about, you know, 40 years his senior, right? If not older. And at some point in his Instagram feed, and how it got on my radar, is he was commemorating his relationship with this woman as roommates. And I'm like, well, this is kind of interesting. What's this all about, right? He basically had invited her to live with him, to be roommates with him. They both were on the same floor of this apartment complex, and it ended up being where this was a totally platonic, totally like friendship relationship, roommate relationship, until she passed. And so there was, you know, pictures of them basically they're eating popcorn, drinking champagne, watching a movie, you know, things of that nature. But the thing that hit me the most poignantly was, you know, it's very little space on an Instagram account where you can put a little bit of verbiage. His terminology on his verbiage, his descriptor, was, leave someone better than you found them. It was such a nuanced difference between saying that versus leave it better than you found it. It really hit me, and it really gave me a little more clarity at what drives me. It's not so much the it's the person. And so I'm just sharing that because it's like, to your point, I think the more you get engaged and involved, this is a muscle that you continue to develop and evolve, and the level of sophistication in your volunteering becomes, it takes you deeper. You find things that are really rewarding. Everybody has something to offer. The need out there is not getting any smaller. It always gets bigger. There's always, like, 1OC is an amazing organization. I'm so glad to know that you're involved in them, because they touch every other nonprofit in Orange County. And the joke in Orange County is, between every nonprofit and nonprofit is a nonprofit, right? So there's a lot of need. There's a lot of good intended people out there, and nonprofit organizations by their nature are usually, they stem from somebody wanting to do something to help, and then they grow organically from that position, and then at some point they struggle. And so the need for people that are maybe bringing in some organizational skills, some business skills, is actually very valuable.
I think so. Organizations like that never have enough resources.
Never, yeah.
They can use money, they can use talent, they can use time and effort. Some have more difficulty incorporating that all together, making it work, but that's part of what we at 1OC need to do, is help them learn how to use those people productively. Anyway, but there's so much need, and I like that expression that you said, leave someone better than.
It took it to a different level for me, Richard. I've always embraced that other form of the language, of leaving it better than you found it, as being a genuinely honorable pursuit. But then when it made it very personalized like that, I was like, you know what? That's really what it is. They're human beings that you're impacting.
That's right. And
your friend with the dental clinic, that's not just him being feeling rewarded like he achieved a goal or accomplishment by building a physical entity. The people's lives, genuine daily lives, were improved because of his effort.
Well, that's right. You have to like people and care about them. I mean, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. I look at a personal purpose that I adopted for myself a number of years ago, and it was to help people live better lives, in terms of security and prosperity and dignity and being in peace and pursuing their own happiness and that kind of thing. And to help as many people as possible do that. Now, how I can do that is to get more of the people in need the resources from those who have, and get more people to do that kind of work and help those people. And I'm really kind of agnostic when it comes to the organization, the cause, that kind of thing, because they're all doing good work in different areas. And each person is going to find something else that they care about or want to have an impact on.
Right.
It may be different than what I did or would want, or what you would want to do, Rad, but it's important nevertheless. And when they say, yeah, that's what I want to be able to give my time to, or that's what I really want to have an impact on, you just got to say, great, that's terrific. And here they are. Go, let's go make that introduction. Let's go see what you can do to help, because it is so important. And you are going to improve somebody's life by being involved with that. So it is about people, and it's about the impact that you can have. And I'm just so thankful I get to get up every day and think about how I can have that impact and how I can do that so that people can live better lives.
Well, you're energized, and it shows, Richard. I appreciate it. As we close, I will say this: anybody who's interested in finding out more, please reach out to Richard. The website's right behind me, successwithpurpose.org. You said it multiple times. The biggest, most valuable thing sometimes to give of yourself is not necessarily the money, but your time. And so I want to thank you for your time. And I for one, you've left me better than you found me this morning. So I appreciate your time, my friend. I appreciate your friendship, and I look forward to seeing what else drives you and pulls on you, and look forward to spending more time talking about it, because I think it's definitely a gift. And we sometimes talk about a lot of other stuff that we put value to, but this is something that really is where you impact people positively. You leave them better than you found them. So I wish you a good weekend, and I'm sure I will see you around the club. And I know that I will enjoy when we are actually able to sit in the same room together, and right.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate the candid conversation. I appreciate your share today, and I wish you a good weekend, my friend.
Thanks, Brad. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy talking about it. Enjoy being with you. So thanks so much.
Likewise.
Have a
Take
great
care.
weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.